BookTube. As you can see, I'm in a different location. In fact, I'm not even at my house. There was a family emergency, so we had to go. My mom decided yesterday that we're going to go visit my grandmother in South Carolina. Um, so, and right now, her and my mom went to the bank. I don't know what else they're going to do. And I want to film this before they come back, so I might end up refilming this anyway, so it might not matter, but in case I do get through this video, hi! Welcome from Jack Reading Corner from South Carolina. So, I want to talk to you guys about, I'm going to do a discussion video on what I've read so far of Count of Monte Cristo by Alexander Dumas. This is something that I got the idea of doing this from Books and Things. She's been doing a read-along of Bleak House by Charles Dickens, and she discussed what she's read, the chapters she's read. There's a window right here, so I keep looking out the window to see my mom's car. She'll discuss each of the chapters she's read. So I'm going to just basically discuss what I've read so far of this book, and this is going to be full of spoilers, I guess you could say. So I didn't take notes or anything. Like a lot of times, some of these videos I will take notes of what I want to say. So I'm just kind of going with the flow here, and hopefully this is good. And but anyway, if you're not familiar, this is a story of a man, Alexander Dumas. But Edmond Dantes, he's a sailor in France, and he's pretty happy. He has a good life. He likes his job as a sailor. He's, young and free and alive. He has a beautiful girlfriend that he's gonna marry, and he has a good relationship with his dad. And but unfortunately, his Captain Leclerc, I don't know if I'm saying that right, kind of has gotten him into a little bit of trouble because he has given Edmund this letter, which contains some inappropriate information about a Bonapartist. So in this delivery of the letter is seen by Danglars, who is very jealous of Edmund because he can sense that the kid is really good and will probably be promoted. And he's a seasoned sailor, and he's like, I can't let this guy become captain over me. And when Leclerc on the same voyage, he dies. He gets killed. And when they get back, Monsieur Morel, his kind of boss, tells Edmund that he's probably will be promoted to captain because he's so good and everything. And Danglars, of course, is not happy about that. So Edmund, goes, is all excited and stuff. And Edmund goes, has returned home to Marseille and all happy and celebrating. He goes to see his alien father, and then he goes to see, he spends time with him, and you're introduced to their neighbor, Carterousse, who is very friendly towards them, but he's a bit greedy. And he also goes to see his girlfriend Mercedes, and they could finally, now that he's returned, they can finally get married. But Edmond has a rival in Mercedes' cousin Ferdinand, who is like obsessively in love with her, but she does not love him. She very loves Edmund, and she's happy to marry him. So Ferdinand meets Danglars and the drunk Carterousse, and they decide to work together to get rid of Edmund. And they write a letter that incriminates Edmund as being a Bonapartist. And this was during, like, right before the 100 Days. If you're familiar with your history, I'm going to stop pulling that up. If you're familiar with your history, this is when, like, we have King Louis, I think it's the 18th, is running the country, but then you have Napoleon Bonaparte, who's trying to take over everything, like France and stuff like that. So you kind of have the country divided. You have the Bonapartist, who I guess are the rebels, and then you have the people who are still loyal to the king royalist. And so they incriminate Edmund as a Bonapartist because of this letter. The letter he was given through this letter that, and because Danglars witnessed Captain Leclerc giving him that other note, which Edmund did not know the information it contained. So during his engagement party, Edmund is arrested, and he meets with the magistrate who offers to help him out, but it turns out that Villefort finds out that the note contains information on his own father being a Bonapartist. So he ends up putting Edmund in the Chateau d'If prison, which is an island prison, which is very hard to escape. And Edmund does not understand why he's here. He doesn't know what criminal act he committed. And while he's in the prison, he's been there, he meets this priest, Abbe Faria, who is this very wise man who is actually connected. He's a priest to the Borgias. And of course, when they fell out of power and got killed and stuff, Faria ends up in the Chateau d'If. And him and Edmund meet when he's trying to dig his way out of the prison. And he ends up in Edmund's cell. And he starts teaching Edmund. And teach him all the knowledge he knows. Because unfortunately, Edmund is not very book smart. And he helps him realize what happened to him. He helps him to understand that he got betrayed by Ferdinand and Danglars. That they are the ones that put him in prison. And eventually, when Faria dies, sadly, he dies in jail because he's an old guy. He's, fortunately, being in prison, especially when you're an old person, you're probably not going to live that long. And he dies, so Edmund decides to take his place because they stuff his body in this sack, and that's how he ends up escaping, and he runs into these smugglers who escort him, who offer to let him join their crew, and because he's an expert sailor and everything, they're cool with him, and they like him helping them out and stuff. And finally, Edmund has his eyes set on a mysterious treasure on the Isle of Monte Cristo, because the Faria told him about it, and that's how you learn about his connection to the Borgias. So Edmund has found, as luck would have it, the crew he's with, the smugglers, go to that island, and he goes in hunting for this treasure. He's still not 100% sure if he believes the treasure. In fact, when he first heard that Faria talking about the treasure, or someone talking about the treasure, he thinks he's crazy. He agrees that he's crazy, because he finds this hard to believe. But he finds the treasure. And we are up to this point where he has found out about that everybody, his supposed friends, he finds out what has been going on with them. And he finds out that Carter's, his problem, he didn't necessarily betray Edmund, but he didn't do anything either. But Edmund, I think, kind of forgives him because, he was a victim of cowardice. His only crime was cowardice, and that he got drunk, and he got intimidated by Ferdinand and Danglars, who told him not to do anything. And now they're even more powerful, so it's even worse. And then he finds out Morel is not, his Danglars was promoted and left Morel, and he's now there's a war going on, I think, with Spain. So, and Faroon, his company and the Faroon kind of fell apart, and they actually got lost at sea. And so, but the crew survived. And you find that Morel, I think it's Morel that owns the inn now with his wife and daughter. And we find out in Carteros is it Carteros who owns the inn? I can't remember. I'll have to look that up. But wait, no, I think it might be Carteros who owns the inn, not Morel. But Edmund, so and he finds out that Mercedes and Ferdinand got married when Ferdinand came back from the war, and that Mercedes now has a son, Albert. So I've seen the movie, so I know how things turn out for the characters. But what I love about reading the original text is the original text, and I think that's why people are so like, oh, the book is always better. Now I think sometimes the movies are more accessible. Like, I still feel like it would be just easier to watch the Lord of the Rings movies than read the books. But I do, to be fair, that I have the audiobooks on my Amazon wishlist. And the same thing with Les Mis. I just found the book itself kind of boring, and from what I remember. And so it was just more entertaining to watch the musical than read the book. But in this case, I'm really enjoying the book, and I do go back to the old belief that the book is better in this particular case, because there's so much more. First of all, I love historical political intrigue. I don't want to read books about today's political intrigue because I'm living that. I hear that all the time. I mean, even here, my grandma, that's one of the only things my grandma watches while we're here. She watches the news 24/7 practically. So I hear about all this stuff all the time. I'm aware of this stuff, but historical politics is so much more interesting and intriguing, especially before the 20th century. Like the 19th century and backwards, it's so interesting, and learning about what was going on back then and what the people went through. And like I said, this is during the time when Napoleon was trying to take over France. And we learn more about that, because the movie just gave the basic thing about Edmund is framed, he ends up in jail, he is taught by the priest, and one of the differences is the priest in the movie, I think the priest taught him how to sword fight, but in this one he hasn't. So we haven't gotten that. Now, I don't know, maybe they put that in there for, make it more exciting and action-packed. But the sword fight, which is a little disappointing. So I was thinking the smugglers would teach him. Maybe Jacopo might still teach him, I don't know. But maybe the book won't necessarily have that in there. Maybe he will just be able to learn how to sword fight. I mean, I'm sure even as a sailor, you would learn how to sword fight, because you might run into people that you might have to defend yourself against. Not just the waters, the vicious, dangerous seas, but I mean, there's so much more political intrigue going on. You get more bits and pieces about Napoleon Bonaparte and how France feels about how some of the people of France, like the people of Marseille. And we also get more of some of the other characters in this book. Like, we have learned, like, we get more time with Villefort, for instance. And we have met Carteros, who I like him. Even though he was a bit of a chicken, you can't really blame him. So it's not just... So we learn more about these characters and get to know these people. Like, we see Villefort's interaction with his father. Like, in the movie, yes, we do find out that his dad is a Bonapartist and he wants his father dead. He wants his father gone. He wants him dead. But in this one, we actually see the conversations between father and son. Actually, no, we might have got that in the movie. It's been a long time since I watched the movie, but it feels like there's so much more in the book. I mean, maybe it's because there are so many more chapters in the book And the movie is like 2 hours, probably 2 hours long. Like, see, there's all this page of chapters, and then there's that. Look at all that. And then look at that last page. And that's 1,084 pages. Unless you count if you read, although I don't read like introductions and explanatory notes. I mean, even when I was told to read that part in class for some of the books we read in my British literature class I took last year, I didn't. I skipped it because I was like, I don't need to read this. But I really appreciate that, we see the conversation between Villefort and his dad, and we see the tension in their relationship and how Villefort is very frustrated with his father for being a Bonapartist, and his father's like, I don't care, I'm loyal to this guy and to the Emperor, to Bonaparte, and you're just a boy, you're a child, you don't know, you don't understand. And then also, Ferdinand is very different from the movie. In the movie, the actor who played him, and I know the actor who played him, I just can't think of his name. He's the same guy who played the main character in the Time Machine remake. The remake that came out a few years ago. But Ferdinand is so much more, he acts more like a child in the book. He's so much more immature. While in the movie, I got the impression he was probably a little bit of a child having temper tantrum, especially when Mercedes reveals some information to him, like the truth about her intentions. But yeah, he seems so much more confident and sly, and like he didn't really care. I mean, I've only read so much. I haven't even seen him since they had arrested him. But he seemed like such a coward and a child, and I don't think he even begins to understand or to fathom the repercussions of his actions. The fact that he ruined this Edmund's life, essentially, all because of pettiness and jealousy. All because he was like, I want the girl, I love her, so you know what, I'm going to ruin your life. I'm going to have you arrested because I want to take what's yours. It's like, he was basically mad that Edmund has the pretty toy that he wants. And it's Danglars who does the whole letter thing and stuff like that. Now, I don't know if that's included in the movie, but like Danglars definitely seems like a bitter old man in the movie, and he does seem like this that way too. But he also seems more calculating and cunning in the book. But now don't take my word for that, or if you have seen the movie, don't get mad at me because I admit it's been a long time since I've seen the movie. I'm just going by what I remember, so I could be totally wrong here. But I am pretty sure, though, there is so much more in the book than in the movie, at least. I'm sure of that. But Danglars definitely seems more cunning and calculating. He's the one who wrote the letter that framed Edmund. But it was Ferdinand who actually sends it. And Danglars knows that Carteret, who's mostly drunk when they're having this conversation, like they get him drunk because they know deep down that Carteret is actually a decent guy and he actually does care about Edmund and his father, and that he thinks, and he would not approve of them doing this. He would think it was messed up, which it is. I mean, they basically ruined his life out of petty jealousy and envy. And so Danglars makes the motion, making it look like he got rid of the note. He crumpled it up and throws it somewhere. He doesn't put it in a trash can or whatever they would have had back then. He throws it. He doesn't destroy the letter or anything. And of course, Carteret he's not so drunk that he doesn't have some idea of what they're doing. He's somewhat aware and he has enough to have an opinion, but he's too drunk to be like, wait a second, you didn't even get rid of that, you just threw it somewhere. And Ferdinand picks it up, and I'm guessing, and I'm pretty sure he was the one who gave it to. He was the one that talked to gave it to Villefort or whatever, or the police or whatever to frame Edmund. And he said all because he was in love with Mercedes, and Danglars is all because he was all jealous, and he's like, I'm the senior crew member of this. I should be the one who gets to be captain. And he basically, and then he abandons it. It's like he abandoned Marchand Morel, and it's just, those guys are just, I want to punch them. And of course, Mercedes, the thing about classics and when classics with female characters, especially if it's written by a man, the female characters feel like they're not as very, like, not aggressive, but, I mean, that too, but they're not as active in the story. They're very passive in characters. Like, all we get is that Mercedes, we don't know much about Mercedes' character in the book, I feel like. She's typical of, she's the sweet one, the kind one, the one who does not want, like, she has a good heart, she does not want trouble, she doesn't want conflict. And she's very passive, a passive character. She pleads for Edmund to be released, and she doesn't do anything. I think she could have done so much. I almost wish that Dumas had made the character a little more. Although it's funny though. Sometimes I think these authors, like, one of their books, the female character will be just really, like, dull and not very active and, like I said, passive. But then in their other books, you see the female characters are much more, like, they're kind, calculating, they're active, and they'll do stuff. Like, now I haven't read the book, I'm just going by the movie in this case, but in his book, The Three Musketeers, I feel like some of the characters, and of course, maybe the movies helped with these characters, but, like, what is her name? I can't remember her name. Lady De Winter. She's this woman who has a mark on her that shows that she has committed crimes and stuff, like, and she was badass. At least the movie, that's the impression I got. The movie version, like the Disney movie, and then the recent remake, that kind of had a steampunk feel. And one of the things I really liked about that one was, I liked that Orlando Bloom played a bad guy in that one. I kind of like that. Because so far we haven't seen him play any bad guys yet, and I like that he was a bad guy. And I definitely I prefer the guy who played I want to say it's Logan Lerner. I don't know, but I definitely prefer him over Chris O'Donnell. But anyway, we're not talking about that book. I just was bringing it because I feel like in that one, some of the female characters, I get the impression, at least from the movies, that they're not as weak and damsel in distressy and just, oh, we must keep the peace, and oh, don't do this, I don't want it to get ugly, or oh, like, I just characters like that, and like Mercedes, the way she's been presented so far, and characters like let's say Melanie Wiltz from Gone with the Wind just annoy the crap out of me. It's like, you're making women look bad. Of course, then at the same time, I'm thinking, well, maybe that's my modern mindset. Maybe I'm being a little unfair because that's how there were probably a lot more women like that back then. But I don't know, though. I will never know. I could ask someone, but I don't know. I do like Middlemarch but like Dickens is another author also that the female characters, some of them are just like passive and submissive, but then other times I've heard that his other female characters are a little more stronger, more calculating and cunning and mysterious and all that. But anyway, so I like Jacopo too. Well, I feel like we haven't gotten a lot of his character yet. I liked him in the movie, so I'm hoping he'll be just as entertaining as the book. just interesting of a character. It's funny that from what I remember in the movie, he was the one who tries to stop Edmund from getting his revenge. He tells him to move on and, forget about it, just take Mercedes back and then leave. So it shows that he is somewhat of a moral compass. And he's a smuggler, a pirate, essentially. So, but of course, pirates can't be this time. It's not all pirates. Some pirates do have a moral compass. But anyway, I have not got to that point in the book, obviously, because that's not until the very end. So some of the last two chapters were a little. I didn't entirely understand what was going on in those two chapters. I know that Monsieur Morel was in debt, and we kind of discussed what in this guy, this clerk, this English clerk, and I want to say that he might be a lawyer. That's the equivalent to a lawyer back then. He talks with the prison inspector and Morel, and they talk about Dante's escape and how it kind of made the prison look bad, I think, and how he kind of pretended to be, although they think Edmund is dead, they actually think he is dead because, there's no cemetery, the body was not buried. They don't bury their bodies. What they do is, because they're on an island, they basically essentially throw the bodies out to sea. And so Edmund would have hit the rocks, or if he didn't hit the rocks, he would have, if he survived hitting the rock, if he didn't hit the rocks and he survived that, then he'll probably drown. But it is noted in the beginning of the book that Edmund is a really good sailor. So he was able to cleverly escape because I think they had his feet tied so he couldn't get out. Although I don't see any point in them doing that because if the person is dead, but I guess there's a small possibility that they're not dead. But I'm pretty sure they would check. I mean, I think they did. They checked to see if the body was dead. So what was the point of them? I guess maybe they tie the feet so that they tie it with something that has weight to it so that the body would sink to the bottom of the ocean. But I have to say, I noticed that maybe it's just because I'm a visual person, but scenes like that are definitely more intense and scary for me instead of me just reading it in the book. Because when I see it on the screen, because you get a visual of it, you're not just using your own imagination. So I was definitely remember being more nervous. But in the book it just happened really fast. But, so like I said in my little brief synopsis of what has happened so far, Edmund has gone to see, disguised as a priest, to find out what's up with everybody, what's everybody doing. And he finds, like I said, that the critter isn't all that guilty. He just was dumb and was a bit of a coward. And so he actually disguised as a priest, an Italian priest. I think he was Italian. He gives him this gem from the treasure because he found the treasure. He actually found the treasure that Faria talked about that he didn't believe really existed. He came across the treasure, which I was like, that was another scene it felt like, because I could actually see it on screen, it was more intense for me watching it on the movie than in the book. Because, although when I was reading the book, I was definitely picturing the movie. If I've seen the movie first, or I hear about the movie before I've read the book, then a lot of times I will picture the actors that they have cast as the characters. So that's why I was picturing Jim Caviezel as Edmund and swimming in the ocean and coming across the treasure. And I think he made Jacopo, and he gave him a little bit of the treasure, and I think he made him his manservant. And the first thing he did was send him to go find out what happened to his father, Mercedes. And he does find out that his dad is dead. And he finds out Mercedes is gone. So he goes to Marseille himself to talk to Carterus and Monsieur Monrel and everything, and finds out and I don't think Carterus is in the movie. I don't think he's actually in the movie. He goes to talk to them, finds out what's going on with them, and that how Mercedes, she was so happy she's in mourning because Ferdinand is on the battlefield and could die, because she does still care about him, even though he's a bastard that basically put her husband, of course, her fiance's life on the line. Of course, she doesn't know that. And when he returned, she was just so happy that he returned and was like feeling like, I've lost Edmund forever. So she agrees to marry Ferdinand. And Ferdinand's like, I don't care, I love this woman, so she wants to marry me. He's like, I'm just happy that she wants to marry me. And then, like I said, Morel and Carterus are not doing that well financially, unlike the other guys. So, and that's when Edmund gives him the treasure he found, a piece of the treasure to Carterus, because he knows that, in fact, that's how he got answers from him. He basically bribed him with the treasure and was like, I'll give you the stone if you tell me what's going on, because Dantes had wanted me to give pieces of, he like inherited something while in prison. He met some rich person, and this guy gave him this stone or whatever, and it was like, I want you to give bits, and Dantes had decided to give bits and pieces of the stone to his true friends. That's the story he tells, disguised as a priest. That's what he tells Carterus. He's like, and that's how he's like, I'll give you this, I'll give you all this if you just tell me, if you point out how, you tell me if I can really trust these other people, that if they are really enemies or not. So, and then by the end of it, he tells them the whole story about the betrayal and everything. He confirms it, and then he goes to, and he's like, the priest, you know what, here you go, I'm gonna give you, you're gonna take the whole thing. But like I said, this is such an interesting story, and I'm so intrigued, and I don't know, maybe now is just the perfect time for me to read some of these classics. I definitely find myself wanting to keep going. Like, I've attempted starting this book several times before, and at those times, and maybe I'm just starting to get used to reading bigger books. Or maybe my tastes are evolving and changing as I get older. And I actually did a video where I talked about that. But it's definitely very politically intriguing, and I'm just, even though I know how it's going to turn out, there's stuff in the book that aren't in the movie. Like, we get more of the other characters, not just Edmund's story. We get all the characters, and we find out Villefort's, his reason, we find out more about his relationship with his father, and why they don't get along. And I mean, like I said, I think in the movie we do find out that his father is a Bonapartist. And let's see. And we do get more of that part. Like, which is a big part to me, because it's the reason why Edmund ends up, it was partly why he ends up in jail, because he ends up being on the wrong side of the political issue. And he had no idea what was going on. He just was trying to be a good employee and do what his captain asked him to do. And he didn't really understand. Of course, now he does. He has a better understanding now, after the priest Faria had taught him everything he knew and helped him to find out the true, why they betrayed him and who betrayed him. And of course, he had some idea, because I think he wasn't completely oblivious to what was going on politically. Because I think, he knew about Bonaparte and everything. So, although I would be curious to find out if he understood better, would he still be, if he, now that he understands things better, I'd be kind of curious to know, would he still be loyal to the king? Or, although at this point, I think I think at this point we like skip ahead because Edmund's been in prison for a long time, so I think like Napoleon, when he finally escapes, Napoleon has lost. But I wonder if he would have sided with Napoleon, or if like a good Frenchman, would he be loyal to his king? I don't know. I'm kind of curious about that. I guess it depends on what you believe. So, but I definitely recommend this book. But it is a big chunker of a book. You know, it's over, like I said, it's over 1,000 pages. But it's so good and so intriguing. And it's more than just a revenge story. There's so much more going on in this book. I wish my friend, because I think if it wasn't so long, my friend Terry from Florida would have enjoyed it, because I think she did enjoy the movie when she saw it. And like I said, the chapters aren't that long, and the chapters aren't, I mean, there are some long chapters, but not all the chapters are that long. Like, this chapter seems to be pretty long. Where he's talking to those are my thoughts so far on the Count of Monte Cristo. If you read it, would love to hear your thoughts and would love to discuss the book with you. If you guys like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. Click subscribe if you haven't already, and I hope whether you're reading that book or you're reading something else, that you are enjoying your reading, and I will talk to you all later. Alright, bye!